Analog horror is a relatively new genre of horror that's been shown up on platforms such as YouTube and the internet as a whole. I've always wanted to make a video on analog horror because it's one of my favorite types of horror, and I wanted to talk about it a lot, maybe share some of my favorites and talk about why it's such an effective form of horror. We should start at the beginning with Local 58. Local 58 was the first one that I ever saw when I was about 15 with my friends, and I thought it was about some of the scariest shit I'd ever seen. Kind of totally threw me out of my ballpark and didn't know what was going on and scared me like none other. I want to talk about why it's so impactful. It's the first analog horror kind of out there, or is cited to be, and it kind of is the building blocks for what would come to be of now modern analog horror, such as great examples being the Mandela Catalog, the Backrooms, and a newer one, which is Skinamarink. What exactly is it, though, that makes these so scary? The terrifying creatures, the atmosphere, the jump scares? Well, all of those are right. However, to me, it's more of the ambiance, music choice, and the buildup of suspense. I think one of the series that does suspense buildup the best is probably that of Monument Mythos by Alex Kansas or Mr. Manticore. Just watch this clip here and you'll get what I mean.
I funzionari se ne sarebbero andati e non sarebbe successo nient'altro. La mattina seguente però ci sarebbe stato un odore peggiore, come un mattatoio.
So, the kind of build up to that is just of a normal woman telling a story of things she's heard and seen around the Statue of Liberty. It's a great build up to it, and there's not really a proper tension release, in my opinion, like you would get from a normal jump scare, but it's released in another way by just showing you that the Liberty Lurker is sliding over, and to release and show to feed some kind of creature under there. And if you've seen this series, you probably know what it is, or if you've seen Wendigoon's video. Also, shout out to Wendigoon. I love you, Wendigoon. You make amazing videos. I want to talk about one of my favorite ones by Alex Kansas in the Monument Mythos series, which is Washington Wormhole. Washington Wormhole, in my opinion, has the best sound to it in the video. It plays a wonderful song in it, and I really think it enhances the feel of analog horror in a way. And a lot of analog horror uses older music, but this is the first time that I witnessed it was in Washington Wormhole, and it's always stuck with me. And it's a great piece that's in there that just kind of adds to the horror, but it's so unexpected. It's not exactly scary music or anything. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's very relaxing music. Let me just play it for you. Now, this song is called My Foolish Heart, and the original version of it is by the Bill Evans Trio, and it was made in 1949, but the version that we're hearing was made by Jane Morgan in 1959. I don't know what it is about this song, but it's so relaxing and calm, and it's so strange to see this when you watch a man fall to his death and then be fed to the presumed monster under the Washington Monument in this kind of training video almost. Another example of well-done music in analog horror is in the Mandela Catalog, and I think it's done almost perfectly in that. It has some great haunting soundtracks to it, and it sounds just haunting, but there's songs that are so old-timey and charming about it, and it's the kind of contrast that I like about this, is the contrast of being such lighthearted, relaxing, old-timey music that goes with something absolutely horrifying going on screen. And I don't know what it is about that brings in a sense of fear to me, but it brings a sense of fear to a lot of people. It's been kind of a trend going on recently, such as things going with like Everywhere at the End of Time and things of manner of that sorts, like Heartaches by Al Bowley and stuff like that. Just take a listen to this track really quick. This is Ave Maria by Franz Schubert, released in 1825. This is a classical piece and has some great contrast to what we are watching currently and what it shows. And I know this isn't the right scene I'm showing, but if you know the scene, you know the scene. There's something about it that I just kind of like a lot. So it's a weird kind of contrast and got a special kind of ring to it that the music, I think, plays one of the most important roles in analog horror, and it's a part that's not often looked at, in my opinion, and I think it should be appreciated more, because it's a very big part of the kind of ambiance and the feel of analog horror, and what it does to the viewer as you watch it. Another part of analog horror that I want to talk about is the ambiance itself, and not that being in the music or the sounds, although those are great, but more as in the feel of the scenery. Skinamarink does a great example of this, in my opinion, just showing weird, kind of off-center shots, not showing you the full picture, and throughout the movie hoping that you can picture this movie together and maybe see and get the layout of the house with these obscured shots. And while we're at it here, I thought I would just kind of talk in general about what Skinamarink does so well, which is childhood horror in a way. And I wanted to look at another example of childhood horror that is a great example that is not often looked at, in my opinion, of some scary stuff, but it really messed with me as a kid, and I want to talk about it, which is from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and that character is Ko the Face Stealer.
Welcome.
Thank you.
My old friend, the Avatar. It's been a long time.
Now, Ko is absolutely horrifying for a children's show, and I love that, and he's still just kind of scary in general, but he gave me this kind of fear as a kid that was just kind of very unnerving, and it is kind of akin to that of Skinamarink, where you never actually know what he really is. It's never really explained what he is, or what his whole purpose is. It's just known that he is the Face Stealer, and that's about it for him. And I believe he's a great representation in some childhood horror that's not looked at a lot, because he's kind of forgotten about in most, like, Gen Z childhood trauma or whatever and all this stuff, and I think he's a great example of it because he's absolutely horrifying. I mean, just look at the dude. He's huge. You never know which one is his actual face, and you can't make any expressions around him or else he'll steal yours, and that's not good. But I think it matches well with Skinamarink because of the main kind of monster in Skinamarink, or whatever it may be, devil or demon or monster. You never get a look at it. And that's the kind of scary thing about it, is it just tells you things, whereas Ko, you can see, you don't actually know what he is, and it's very matching in that kind of way. He speaks very kind of cryptically, little riddle-y type, kind of, in a way, and so does the demon in Skinamarink. It kind of speaks in weird puzzles, such as when it talks to Kevin, the young boy, and it looks at him and it says to him after his sister's gone missing, and you get to see her sister with no face and all that stuff, and Kevin asks what happened to her, and he says to her that she called out for her mom and dad so that he took away her mouth, and that is utterly horrifying, and I love it. And it's a very scary truth in that movie that these kids have no idea what this thing is, they don't know what it can do, and he theoretically, in the mind of a child, he can do anything that he wants, and it's horrifying, and I love that kind of fear put in there. It's the fear of the unknown, and it's absolutely horrifying, and that is, in a sense, the greatest fear in itself is the fear of the unknown. Skinamarink does this very well, and One of my favorite examples of it is near the beginning, and you start to see all the just windows and the doors disappearing, and it leads up to, well, near the end, when Kevin calls 911 and tells the operator that there's no doors and that they can't get in. And that is absolutely horrifying, and I love it so much. There's another scene from Monument Mythos in Washington Wormhole that I really wanted to talk about. I didn't know where to put it, so I'm going to put it here. It's in the introduction of Washington Wormhole, and there's something about it, kind of like in a poetry way, that makes me love it so much.
The forest fell swiftly as the lumberjack swung, except for the special tree, which could not be stung. She missed her friends and the hymns they sung, so she started a tune that broke the man's lung.
Now, as just a reminder, I'm just a dude who's just talking about analog horror. I have no credentials or anything to back this up. I just want to get my thoughts out there, but now, if you've seen Monument Mythos, this poem has a lot of story to it regarding the whole story of it, but it's about the special tree in the story which cannot be struck down, and no matter what cannot be broken or uplifted. But there's one part about this that has always kind of messed with me, and that's the line of, "So she started a tune that broke the man's lung." And I've always wanted to look at this line from a different perspective, not to the Monument Mythos though. It enamors me in a different way that's not relevant to the story, but the grammar that he uses and the word choice that he decides to use for this. And I haven't been able to make anything out of it that's not relevant to the Monument Mythos, and it's so strange to me, and I love the choice of wording. It's just very weird and hits in a different way that I can't really describe. So if you guys have anything you can make out of it that's not relevant to Monument Mythos, just let me know, because I don't know what to think of it. This next topic I want to talk about isn't exactly about analog horror, but it's something that's shown in the Mandela catalog that I really want to talk about, and that is the portrayal of evolutionary horror. Evolutionary horror is a great genre of horror, and it kind of shows the idea of what are the dark possibilities that things can become through evolution. And a great example of that is shown in Mandela catalog of how the alternates can assimilate and become humans that they see. The alternates also show forms of evolution later on throughout the series. Their first depiction of them showing that they are able to come through anything analog via TV or a radio or anything like that. And a theory of mine is that they've evolved throughout time to become so powerful, such as one of the alternates being the angel Gabriel, or the false prophet as he's somewhat known as throughout the fan base. Another great example of evolutionary horror, if you're interested in watching it, it's my favorite example ever, is Shin Godzilla, the 2016 Japanese film. I know it's very different from analog horror. It's not analog horror in the slightest. It's a Godzilla movie, for Christ's sake, but it's a really great example of evolutionary horror if you're wanting to find some. And another great example of that evolutionary horror is also I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Also would recommend that. It's a short novel, but if you can, I recommend watching Shin Godzilla and reading I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Both are absolutely phenomenal, with Shin Godzilla being a great film and I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream being a great book. And Shin Godzilla is a great example of evolutionary horror because he constantly adapts and evolves to counter what he's been faced with while destroying Japan and the retaliation of the Japanese army trying to defend themselves against him, but he constantly finds a counter to every single thing, such as when he gets hit by an airstrike, he learns how to shoot the lasers out of his back and such. And in his second form, he's aquatic, and when he comes on the land, he evolves and grows lungs to combat this. And it's horrifying to think that a giant kaiju of that size can do that. So it's a great film, highly recommend it. Anyways, back to analog. So what's my conclusion on analog horror? I love it, it's great. And it's a new type of horror that brings a breath of fresh air to the old ways of slashers and kind of played out psychological horrors and such. And I think it has a lot of room to expand and to bring creativity to new horror creators or short film creators and YouTubers and young creators. Anyways, those are my thoughts about analog horror. Let me know what you guys think of the video, and if you want to see more of this stuff. It's my first time ever kind of doing a video essay type video. It was a little hard to figure out and start up, but I want to start making more content like this. There are so many interesting topics and forms of media and art out there that I've always wanted to talk about and just get out there. Just comment down below what you guys think, and if you liked it, leave a like and subscribe if you want to. Well, thank you for watching and have a good one.